Hello and Ni Hao from China. With the greatest wall of all, the Great Wall of China is China's most famous and beautiful landmark, a major tourist attraction and even a UNESCO World Heritage Site. But its story is even more exciting and interesting. It is much older, longer and more diverse than most people know. Very controversial in Chinese history, just a small part of something much bigger. And anyway, horses and rains are to blame for its existence. Let's go on an exciting journey through thousands of years of time and across half of China. The Great Wall of China, often copied but never equaled. Like here from Mr. Trump to keep others away, or like here from the former German Democratic Republic so that no one runs away. They didn't understand the concept at all. The formulation sounds wonderfully poetic. The wall resembles a Chinese dragon meandering through the landscape and over the mountain tops. However, there is not the Great Wall of China at all, but rather a whole network of more or less interconnected wall sections with a total length of at least 21,196 kilometers. That's 13,171 miles. When lined up directly next to each other, this results in a distance longer than from the North Pole to the South Pole, and therefore extends further than half the globe, or 5 times from New York to Los Angeles, with an estimated average height of approximately 7 meters or 32 feet, and an average width of approximately 6 meters, that's 20 feet, at the base, and approximately 4.5 meters, 14.8 feet width at the top, allowing several people to comfortably walk side by side. That amounts to almost 800 million cubic meters of built-up material, without taking into account the countless watchtowers, access roads, bridges, and other buildings and defensive structures such as farms, storage facilities, or barracks connected to the wall. All of this makes the Great Wall of China the largest mega project in human history to date, without any heavy machinery such as excavators or any electrical tools. Everything was done by hand, and the material of rammed earth, bricks, stones, and boulders was not supplied from the Walmart. This one had to be, but had to be painstakingly produced or installed on site. A fabulous effort. I find the mortar used particularly funny, which contained glutinous rice flour due to the lack of cement. Fascinating. Several million small farmers, soldiers, craftsmen, convicts, temporary workers, and even a few members of defeated nomadic tribes took part in the construction more or less voluntarily. The construction time also beats all records and easily makes every long-lasting construction project like Mumbai's new airport and Stuttgart 21 rail green with envy. The construction of the first sections of the wall began even before 771 BC. Nobody knows the exact year construction began anymore, but it's known that the very last phase of construction was completed in 1878 during the Qing dynasty. So the work began about 2,800 years ago, and the wall building project ran for a massive 2,650 years. Incredible amounts of money and manpower flowed into the Great Wall of China over thousands of years, until the bitter end when it was ultimately no longer needed. The poignant and often told legend of Mrs. Mengqiang is also bitter. Her husband Fan Qiliang was drafted to work on the wall, leaving Meng behind. Months passed without news, and out of concern for her husband, Meng began the long journey to the wall. When she arrived there, she received the heartbreaking news that her husband has died while working on the wall. Overwhelmed with grief, she cried and screamed so bitterly that from the flow of her tears and her screams, parts of the Great Wall collapsed, revealing her husband's bones. Seeing Mengqiang's great love and sadness moved the heavens, and the story symbolizes the enduring love and sacrifice of women for their husbands in Chinese culture. It is often told as a story of tragic love and devotion set against the backdrop of the construction of the monument monumental Great Wall of China. This legend has been the subject of numerous poems, novels, and even operas in Chinese literature and testifies to the emotional and historical significance of the Great Wall of China. In general, the construction of the wall was very controversial, and some called it the Wall of Tears or Wall of Bones. These terms highlight the significant human cost and suffering associated with construction. Years of forced labor and military service had a major impact on the lives of countless people. Ineffectiveness. Some critics argued that the Great Wall did not entirely fulfill its purpose of defending against invasions. Resource consumption. The construction and maintenance of the Great Wall of China required significant financial resources, and the burden often fell to the common people through taxes and labor obligations. Critics said these resources should have been better used for other purposes, for example to improve living standards or infrastructure. Practically all of the Xiongnu peoples, Mongols and their successors, Jurchen tribes, Manchu tribes and other nomadic and tribal groups from Central and Inner Asia living outside the northern border, but also many Chinese, just like the people back in 1989's Berlin, had the opinion the wall has to go. The wall has to go. The wall has to go. Each ruler over the construction period of 2,650 years encountered certain resistance to the construction project. And yet they kept building till 1878. Why? You have to know that the borders in the east are very well protected from enemy attacks by the Pacific Ocean. In the west, the country is even perfectly protected from the almost insurmountable Himalayan massif with huge mountains including Mount Everest and the slightly less well-known but also 3,000 kilometers or 1,864 miles long and up to 7,167 meters or 23,500 feet high Kunlun Mountains. Even Hannibal with his elephants wouldn't have been able to invade like he did over the Alps. The country was also relatively easy to defend in the south. But of all things, the northern border, which is many thousands of kilometers long, is completely open like a barn door. Mostly open plains, rolling hills and the Gobi Desert. And it is precisely from there, the vast Eurasian steppe and the deserts of the north, that the greatest threats to China have always regularly come, in the form of very mobile nomadic warrior tribes and sometimes huge armies. The mountainous terrain of the wall around Beijing belies the true terrain because it is where most of the images come from. The highest point of the entire wall is almost 1,440 meters, 4,725 feet above sea level in Huanglouyuan, near the northwestern suburb of Beijing. Besides, the wall sinks down to sea level and mostly only runs over hills and plains. China has good soil and plenty of rainfall to grow crops practically everywhere. China developed into an agricultural state very early on, where the good supply from agriculture ensured higher population densities and more innovations and technology. This led to a relatively wealthy and well-provided settled population in well-governed, reasonably stable states. Metal processing for tools and weapons, but also luxury products such as silk, tea, and later also good porcelain from around 200 BC were extremely advanced and sought after throughout the region. Real export hits, so to speak. The situation beyond the northern border is completely different. The border follows a more or less invisible line where the annual rainfall falls to around 400 millimeters per year. North of that border, it will be even drier, with even less rain. Endless grassy steppes and dusty deserts from the rain-poor, barren area of the nomadic peoples. Agriculture is not possible here because there is simply too little rain and everything dries up. Very different amounts of rain on both sides of the northern border also ensure that two completely different lifestyles collide, and to a certain extent also rich and poor. Obviously, that arouses desire. In addition to the rain, there is a second big problem for the Chinese that ultimately made it necessary to build a wall: horses. In contrast to the Chinese heartland, the relatively cool climate and dryness beyond China's northern border offer ideal conditions for horse breeding. Around the year 800 BC, the steppe land in the north was firmly in the hands of warlike nomadic steppe peoples and tribal confederations from which the Mongols, Xiongnu, Hans, Manchu, Chechen, and other people would later emerge. These nomadic warriors spent virtually their entire lives on horseback, and because of their riding skills as well as shooting skills, they were feared and highly mobile mounted warriors with a seemingly endless supply of fast and strong horses. Due to a lack of enough horses, the Chinese relied militarily on infantry, which had practically nothing to counter the agile and fast cavalry from the north. Horses were in short supply, and the Chinese cavalrymen could hardly keep up with the riding skills of the nomad warriors. So it happened as it had to happen. The nomadic peoples regularly made extensive use of raids, lightning raids, looting, and kidnapping, and even the occupation of entire areas in order to share the wealth of their neighbors to the south. And so they brought more and more big problems such as economic damage and human suffering to the Chinese. It was a kind of hit and run game, obviously. Already during the period of the Western Zhou dynasty, before 771 BC, strategically important positions had to be fortified with earthen walls made of ramped clay in order to at least slow down the invaders, possibly the first predecessors of the Great Wall of China. In the period of the Spring and Autumn Annals, starting from 771 BC, China had broken up into many small feudal states, while Confucius and Lao Tzu shaped large parts of Chinese culture that is still valid today through their philosophies. This was also the time in which the Mandate of Heaven came into being. The country was weakened by the competition and conflicts between these states, and the weakening in turn attracted increased attacks from beyond the northern border, but also between the individual states. Fortifications and ramparts were further expanded between individual states as well, out of the need for everyone to protect themselves from almost everyone else. Not good. Things got even worse during the Warring States period from 475 BC. Through intense wars and political instability as states vied for dominance, this led to increased military innovations such as the use of cavalry, iron weapons, and even more fortifications being built. 3,080 kilometers or 1,940 miles of new Great Wall of China was built, and the famous book The Art of War by Sun Tzu was written. While Mencius argued for the moral foundation of good governance, and the vast chaos gave rise to philosophical schools such as those of legalism, Taoism, and Mohism. And the foundation stone was finally laid for the reunification of China under the Qin dynasty. The reunification emperor in the Qin dynasty is none other than Qin Shi Huang, probably the most famous Chinese emperor who had the legendary mausoleum built under the supposed Chinese pyramid, a large burial mound, and also the world-famous terracotta army was buried by him. During the Qin dynasty, there were first actions taken to connect and expand these walls to create a more permanent barrier against the threats from the north. Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China, is often credited with the earliest large-scale construction of the Great Wall of China. During the following Han dynasty, the armed conflict with the Xiongnu, a confederation of many nomadic tribes in the north, also escalated. In fact, another 3,680 kilometers or 2,287 miles more of Great Wall of China were built during the Qin and Han dynasties. Subsequent Chinese dynasties, including the Wei, Qin, and Northern Wei dynasties and others, continued to build, expand, and repair various sections of the Great Wall over the centuries. An additional 5,584 kilometers were added. That's 3,469 miles. The wall served excellently over the centuries as part of a large defense concept. Only with enough soldiers manned, fast mobile intervention forces nearby, and always well-informed military leadership with good strategic concepts and sufficient supplies and weaponries, the wall was a great defensive weapon. Thanks to the wall's many watchtowers and its sophisticated communication systems using fire, smoke, flags, signal drums, horns, bells, and even carrier pigeons, the alarm could almost always be sounded in good time, and support troops from other fortified installations quickly rushed to the scene via the well-developed roads. Lightning-fast communication over hundreds of kilometers helped prevent serious damage from attacking armies. The wall at least made it more difficult to penetrate, as it was impossible to get through on horseback. The prospect of having to get off the horse and trying to knock down or climb the wall while being shot at by the Chinese troops or pelted with large stones or worse, while knowing full well that they have already alerted the reinforcement troops, is certainly something that made many people discard their raiding plans. Due to the difficulty of getting through the wall, in most cases people had to return at exactly this point of the wall after the raid has been completed. There were probably already enough Chinese soldiers waiting there for the returnees, because the wall was also a quick and direct transport route for soldiers and goods. The wall also functioned as a preventive deterrent, but due to its strong presence and above all its length, it was also an imposing symbol that was intended to represent the power and greatness of the Chinese people. In addition to its purpose as a defense against invading enemies, it was also a very clear border marker and an effective tool for border control of people and goods, as well as for taxing and regulating trade across the Silk Road and with neighbors of the north. It also functioned as a diplomatic tool, as it was a great way to control and enforce trade restrictions for difficult neighbors and, for example, trade facilitations for cooperating neighbors. In peacetime, buffer zones with Chinese settlers were also set up in front of the wall so that Chinese influence and culture could also be there. In case of attacks, the wall served as a refuge, and the farmers of the buffer zone also helped as additional defensive forces to defend the wall. But one day disaster struck. The Churchen conquered northern China, including areas that were part of the Sung dynasty, and established their capital in what is now Beijing. The Churchen are a Tungistic ethnic group from northeastern China, from inside the Great Wall of China. They weakened themselves and the Sung dynasty in southern China through wars, while Genghis Khan founded the Mongol Empire in 1206. The Mongol Empire, led by Genghis Khan and later his grandson Kublai Khan, gradually conquered China and reunited it under their rule. Kublai Khan founded the Yuan dynasty in 1271. The Great Wall of China was designed to defend against marauding nomadic tribes and larger regional attacks. It could just do little against the Mongols' well-trained strategic army with a reported number of over 100,000 soldiers, although it did delay the attacks somewhat. In addition, the Churchen in question allied themselves with the Mongols in the hope of being part of the winning team. It took China almost 100 years to free itself from the foreign rule in 1368. The shock was deep, and the Great Wall of China experienced a highly motivated construction boom in the Ming dynasty that followed. An unprecedented 8,852 kilometers, that's 5,500 miles, of new wall was built over the next 276 years. And the existing wall was properly repaired and modernized with many new watchtowers. It was built with more durable fired bricks, and these images of the modern wall can be seen everywhere around Beijing, for example in Badaling or Mutianyu. And yet, the catastrophe happened a second time. Due to dramatic circumstances, the empire of the Ming dynasty was ultimately so weakened that this time the Manchus were able to establish a Manchurian dynasty with the Qing dynasty in 1644, which was to rule the Chinese this time until the end of the imperial era in 1911. It was not until the proclamation of the Republic of China in 1912 that the Chinese regained power over their own country, at least mostly, but that's a completely different story. In the late Qing dynasty, the fate of the Great Wall of China as a defensive structure was also sealed, due to the fact that the Mongolian rulers had properly expanded the country's borders to the north. The Great Wall of China was no longer near the border. Its last small missions were in the Sino-Russian border conflict from 1652 to 1689 and during the Japanese invasion in the 1930s and 1940s, but both times it played practically no role anymore. Since the late Qing dynasty, the wall, which is no longer needed, has largely been no longer maintained, is rapidly deteriorating and is understandably not in good condition today. It is simply impossible to maintain all of these endless kilometers of wall. Over time, building material from the wall was initially recycled in many places to build new things. In between, space was also created for new infrastructure. The last time was a few days ago when two workers simply used an excavator to dig a convenient illegal shortcut through parts of the wall. Of course, the Chinese state is now protecting the wall as best as it could. There are now more than 43,700 Great Wall of China heritage sites in 15 provinces, and the entire wall has been a World Heritage Site since 1987. Only through government funding and the visits of an estimated 10 million tourists per year, it is possible to keep at least almost 10% of the wall in good condition. Unfortunately, the rest is in poor to very poor condition, and over 30% are no longer visible at all because nature simply takes over again over the years, and these pieces slowly fall apart, are covered by earth, or are simply overgrown by vegetation. Nobody can care for the entire 21,000 kilometers. A not insignificant amount of guilt is also borne by many tourists who take stones with them as souvenirs, trample around on half-ruined and crumbling sections of the wild wall, which is now so trendy, and often enough and usually accidentally cause parts to suddenly flip over, fall over, slip or collapse, right down to simple piles of clay or stone. And broken is broken. I admit, years ago I was tempted to walk around in half-ruined areas away from the tourist crowds without meeting anyone. It was still allowed back then and nothing was broken. But I simply wouldn't do it today out of consideration for human heritage. Please help to leave these wonderful facilities in good conditions for posterity. Don't steal stones. Stay on the permitted paths and sections and do not immortalize your name on the wall. Do that below in the comments under this video, then it's even helpful. So now there's actually only one myth that remains. Can you see the Great Wall of China from space? Yes and no. If you can see a single held up hair with a diameter of 0.03 millimeters from 645 meters away, then you can also see 6.5 meters wide sections of the Great Wall of China from a low Earth orbit at 2000 kilometers altitude. Possibly a long shadow can help improve visibility, but even people at much lower heights had difficulty seeing the wall. It is completely impossible to see anything like the wall from the moon, because then you could see a human hair from almost 7 kilometers away. No way. However, it is much more beautiful and appropriate to admire and enjoy the wonders of our world directly from here, from our wonderful Earth. If you would like to see the Great Wall of China for yourself, it is best to do so on maintained sections of the wall. And please, definitely outside of Chinese national holidays, because that is what the wall looks like then. At other times, things are much quieter, like here last time in Mutianyu near Beijing. Changcheng just for us. Only for us, only for us, you see. No people, only us. I hope the video was interesting and fun. I would especially be happy if you subscribe to my channel, and thank you for your perseverance to watch to the end. Bye bye and 再见, your LaoMa.